So welcome everyone to Metaverse One conference. Great to be here, and I think thanks to all the organizers, Matty, Chris, Vesku, and others. And my session's about building immersive and mixed reality experiences in SharePoint. So this is one of the three tracks, and so thanks for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chirag Patel. I work with Patel Consulting here in London, UK. And I'm a Microsoft 365 IT pro these days. Been working around since 20 years now, from SQL Server DBA to looking after SharePoint on-prem and then kind of morphing into Office 365 and so on. So kind of really been part of many other community speakers that you will see today. So, but for me, just like yourself, every day is learning something new. So some of the tech has been around for quite some time, but it's just how we use it and how we react in different times that we're in. So it's all there for taking. I also I'm an organizer with M365 UK, so generally tend to run monthly, bi-monthly sessions there as well. So to try and do all things M365 within that. And then for my contributions in community, Microsoft recognized to award me MVP for 3 times in M365 apps and services. And I'm also a certified trainer for a couple of years as well. So feel free to get in touch with me. techchirag.com is the best place to get to there, and you can connect to all the other social media channels from there. So SharePoint sites, well, SharePoint's been around many years, and obviously I will not go through the introduction of what SharePoint is, but with 200 million users using it for various scenarios around collaboration, document management. But fundamentally, SharePoint sites is structured with this kind of content items, content areas you have, such as document libraries to store and manage your files in folders and where have you. You've also got things like lists, being able to create, all and tracking all various kinds of lists, being able to create your pages, news posts. None of that is new. Is what SharePoint is good at, and that's what it does. Connects with Microsoft Teams, for your team connected sites, and also being able to create apps and plans. And plans obviously connect to your planner. So all the integration, everything's there is great. You've also got solutions available from the community, so you can literally get to your templates and being able to use your SharePoint for a variety of reasons that you may have, whether that's for your projects, for your meetings, for any other customer sites, whatever that is. So when you've got so much content in your SharePoint sites, then why what spaces, what is that going to bring? What value is that going to bring? Is that going to add up more time to your already busy workload that you may have, and then being able to create? So why bother with it in the first place when we know we can search for our SharePoint, being able to get the files, all these things. So why need it? There's a reason why you need it, because not only we are laboriously kind of, if you like, looking through our SharePoint site all the time and getting the files we need, or for certain generation of folks, they prefer to still go and find their folders and files within that. But what SharePoint space is, that it's essentially reusing the content you already have inside a SharePoint site. So you're not creating anything new, other than you're basically creating a space, an immersive space, if you like, for where you're going to be putting your various elements to be able to create that mixed reality vision. Now, you will see, obviously, out there, there are a lot of articles, a lot of industry hypes, as well as the reality where all these technologies are going. Microsoft have got their own metaverse, kind of a direction, videos around that. So do take a look at that just to get around what is metaverse, and not better than this conference. But really, essentially, this is my view of what space is. It's a space for mixed reality vision with interactions of 2D as well as 3D objects, and that to me, is what we call the web parts that we have within our SharePoint site, with you in the center of attention, because it's all about yourself, your view, and being able to interact. So various reasons. that's just a quick snapshot there in terms of, what sort of things you can have and, how you can configure. You don't really need any of the software for it. It's all web-based, and, being able to work either through SharePoint or inside Teams as a page editor. And because you've already got a SharePoint site, which is part of your Microsoft 365 license, then you don't even need any other license or add-on for the SharePoint space. Now, so you'll probably, you kind of wonder that, in terms of having that and, being able to, if you're not really part of, any kind of mixed reality experiences, and there are a lot of folks out there, because the typical perception is always that, whether you're into games or any other kind of work-related experiences, then you might sort of get, with it. But I think for a user, and this is definitely not targeted for any advanced users or anything like that, it's in the hands of user to be able to create, just like you would create a file or a page. In my view, it's the same sort of item that you're creating as a SharePoint space. So very quickly, before we go into the actual demonstration, because that's the rest of the session from here. So in terms of this few bits and pieces to be aware of here. Firstly, by default, all the SharePoint sites you create, it already comes enabled with the feature enabled for SharePoint space in order to then create your SharePoint spaces, as many as you want within that environment of SharePoint site. It's obviously per site level, so you can have spaces in various SharePoint sites. So it's just like your document library, like your normal pages you have for your intranet or anything like that. It's just going to be a page for your space, and everything else stays inside that page. So then you're able to navigate around that particular space for different experiences, being able to touch interactive and being able to get further into your journey of that experience that you have, whatever that is. So we'll look at that example in a sec. And then the big part of this is being able to connect with various web parts that you have. And for most of you who's working with SharePoint, you're kind of already familiar with both Microsoft and third party, or maybe your own custom web parts when you build that page experience. So it's the same concept when you're building a SharePoint site for it's kind of the same thing that you build in the space for it. And then obviously, you can add that SharePoint space to the teams or any teams you want, as long as there's security on that. So as far as that is concerned, all your Microsoft 365 security and compliance is all taken care of when you're building your space. So all that content resides inside SharePoint site. Okay, so let's head over to our demos. I'm just going to have a quick look on the chat if there is anything. Okay, no, that's yeah, like Matthew says, feel free to interrupt me if you want to ask questions. Fairly informal here, so we can go through that. Right, so here's my SharePoint site. Nothing new, nothing major. It's a standard vanilla SharePoint site, sales and marketing team site, where you got your navigation on the left and the main page body on the middle here. So typically when you come into this SharePoint site, and just in case in your environment, if it's not enabled, it's a very quick way to enable this SharePoint space. So if you go into, for example, site information and site settings, then there you will have a particular variety of options, but the one that we're interested is manage site features. So if you go to your SharePoint site, just in case if you don't see the spaces option, then you can go to this particular site feature set here, and you'll see down here spaces. It's basically what allows users to create a mixed reality space in there. So that's activated. So we're good on that front. So I'll go back to my homepage for SharePoint site. And then within here, just like you would create your normal list document library page, you have an option here to create space. So we're going to do just that. So when you create a space, nothing more other than what's the purpose of the space, and this is where you can have various scenarios. And I've got some ideas and examples towards the end of the presentation. But really, it's just like when you create a SharePoint site, you have a purpose for what that kind of data is going to go into here. So here, you can have various things, but in this particular case, I'm just going to call this a kind of metaverse or product showroom or something like that. So this is essentially where we're going to get all of our users, or at least anybody who wants to be able to get that interactive experiences, they'll come to this area here. You got a few templates here, essentially creating the structure and the themes for the environment where we're going to put all this, the goodness of the SharePoint site inside there. So we'll pick gallery for now, but we can change that afterwards if we need to. So once it's building the environment, I think to me that looks, from a user's perspective, it looks a bit a little bit scary, but it's just creating a page essentially in there. Not great things to look at here, other than it's just giving me that kind of a stage, if you like. If I kind of click my mouse on it, I can go up or down, turn around, and me being in the center of the stage here. So that's all very well. That's good. If I had my headset connected to it, then I can do that experience entirely within that headset. So, because I haven't got one here, then at least I can go to my mouse click. And if I have my Surface Pro on my touch screen, then I can easily do that with my fingers to be able to navigate around. So first thing, because it's a draft page, so it's still using the SharePoint page versioning controls there. So it's kind of in its basic usage there you have. So here, when I click on Space Design, then I can go back here and I can change the details if I wanted to. So I've got a few options there. I'll probably change that to maybe the kind of that layout there. Background, I've got a few options. I can put the image, illustration, color, or even a custom 360-degree file, and that could be the imagery or the videos around that. And there are some kind of caveats around that, but to keep things simple for now, we'll just pick an image. And what better images than what you have in some of the US and other parts. So we'll stick to the first image there, but you got your own images there. You got all the templates there, but also you've got being able to, because it's going to be a product kind of metaverse product showroom, so you have the ability to add the audio as well. So your custom audio files that you can put in there. Or you can choose the templates you have within here. So, if I click on music, and you probably won't hear because I shared without music, I can hear it and that works. You just have to click it from it that it just works. So you can have that kind of sound element to your space environment added in there. Okay, so that's fine. So we've got our stage set, we got our showroom, kind of the view and everything else set there. And if I, again, go around, I've got that sunrise there or sunset, and, being able to just have that full 260-degree view of that image itself, which looks very good. And I'll probably start from here, I would say. So I'll set this as a main sort of view for it. And then you'll see on the top left of my screen, the ability to add the web parts. Same as exactly what you get in your SharePoint page, except you don't have that many compared to what you have in your regular SharePoint page. So you go, very quickly list through to go through that, but you got the image, the tours and videos, and these again are really made. Either you can download them from third-party websites, and there are some free downloads you can use for demonstration purposes. Or if you're in an industry where you kind of rely very heavily around being able to showcase this kind of engineering concepts, then at least you can use the outputs from those the videos or imagery and being able to put that into here. So you got image, tours, videos. We'll pick 3D object for now, just to keep simple again within here. As soon as I do that, then it just tell, I can move my mouse around and exactly where am I going to place this. So I'll probably just place that here. As soon as I do that, it's going to go and say, look for the 3D models. So whilst that's loading up, then I'll just go to my 3D catalog. So this 3D catalog is almost identical to what you would use for, say, within PowerPoint or the 3D app viewer if you're using the Windows on your machine. Then the 3D viewer there, again, same sort of catalog you have there. So you're able to pick the products within that. Obviously, in your case, you probably have unique to your organization. So here I'll come here and I'll probably just pick Surface laptop or something like that. So maybe just pick this particular laptop there. So that's my first object that's gone in there. The other thing I'm going to pick here is I'll put a text web part here as well. So put the text where, and then put the description in terms of what that text is going to say. And we'll just put welcome. And you can have all the other various formatting options you have in there and being able to align the text and so forth. So won't go into much of that, and I'll just probably stick to that one there. So again, I'll probably maybe drag that bit across. Now you can see that if I'm going too far up, then that text gets smaller. So obviously that's not really a good experience to be able to show. So I'll probably just park it somewhere there. And then I'll go ahead and add a few more things here. So again, you got a mixture of 3D and the 2D web parts as well. The document library image, so we'll pick a couple of them as well. So we'll pick document library. And here you can actually choose in terms of any particular folder that you want to display as well. So go into my document library web part. And then, because it's a team and I've got documents in there, so there's one folder as for that particular document library. And then I can pick, and I'll probably just pick here as well, I think. Select that one. So there's few files in there, and you can see that's showing up there. Now you can see with each one of these elements I can configure by just simply hovering on it. And if I wanted to make it bigger, then I can make that bigger as well, and edit that particular document library web part. So then you got all the bits and pieces in here. So you got a few configuration of terminology items like monoscopic and stereoscopic and all this. And this is all to do with the spatial arrangement of that particular object you have. So, if you have something like, 180 degrees, for example, then half of the screen will be blank and half of it will be just occupied here. But we're going to keep it just as monoscopic, just for kind of level up from, the normal SharePoint site. And then you got, again, things like, being able to show the podium for displaying that document as well. So all those things just appear at the touch of a button there. So we'll leave that one there as is, and go and add a couple more. And we'll let's add the YouTube video. So this particular, for that particular video there. So I'll put that left to the laptop itself. And then I'll go and grab a URL from YouTube. So I've got a copy over here. So all I'm looking for there is just a usual link that you normally get from YouTube or anything, or even embed the web part you want if you want to do that as well. Maybe maps or something like that. So I'll put that in there. And then again, auto select the image. In my view, this just doesn't work because even if I kind of, publish this page afterwards, and that's what you get. It says you can't find the image. So best bet there is just to put your own image for that particular video there as well. So I'll probably put those guys there, marketing meeting, and go and put that in there. So my video is set there. Again, I can have the podium if I want, but I'll probably just leave it as that. Again, if I go to the bottom, and you probably may have noticed that with every web part you get, there's essentially two things in terms of the actions, triggers and actions. So this is when the interaction really kicks in, that once the user comes to your showroom experience here, then when they click on that particular object, where do you want them to go further? So those are the kind of triggers and actions you're going to get. So in this particular case for the YouTube wise, we haven't really got much in there, and you can see it's grayed out there. So I'll come to that in a sec, and then I'm just going to go and add one more, which is going to be the org chart. So because it's a showroom, you want contact points, for example. So we'll put that somewhere on the right here. And then whilst that's loading up, so this is going to pull data from my, from my organization directory here. So we can put a particular person in here. So I'll probably put Miriam. So this is a Contoso demonstration. So those contact names are there, Alex and Megan, and so forth. So you can see that, because the org chart is, from the Azure Active Directory, the manager attributes, for example, is already populated. So that org chart will come there. And that's the same one that you get in your other experiences of Office when you use, when SharePoint or Teams, the people cards and everything else. So that's no different, except it's a 3D version of that. And with that one, I can see add actions here. So here in this add action, I've got a couple of options, either to link to another space. So you're not limited by just having one space. You can have multiple space. So you can imagine that if this was a event or a kind of some kind of a multiple product portfolio type scenario, you could potentially have one space per product, if you like, and therefore have multiple spaces depending on your needs and how you want to showcase that, or for any other experiences for onboarding purposes as well. So I'm going to leave that blank for now, or I can link to a page or item anywhere on the web as well. So that's the interaction bit that you can add from that particular org chart perspective. Again, I'm just going to move slightly to the left, and I'm just going to try and drag this a bit to the right, so there's a bit of space between the objects, so it doesn't look cluttered. And finally, I'll just add a file viewer, and I can pick files from my document library. So OneDrive site, wherever it is. So I can go to my site and click on documents. I know we displayed the document library just a few moments ago, but I'll probably pick maybe that one there, DG100 product overview, PowerPoint. And that's just going to display that particular file there as well. Okay, so I can make that bigger if I wanted to, reduce, so no different. Now, some of you may have noticed, and to me, I think it's a poor user experience because you can often miss that, is, while I was doing all this dragging and dropping and adding things, you can see at the bottom there, there's like a, very gray, black faint, and all those measurements, the numbers you've got there, that's essentially kind of, your space numbers itself. So for your width, heights, the angles, in terms of how this is displayed. So all those things you can kind of adjust to your liking in that. Or if you want, you can lock it as well. So you can see that I can zoom out, zoom in. So that's fine, and I can have a good kind of overview around that. So when you're building your SharePoint space, more often you get stuck to your object so quickly, and then you can always be put off by creating something more. So my kind of tip around that is just to zoom out as much as you can, and then being able to drag the various elements to begin with, and then kind of focus and then work on each element itself. Okay, so I'm going to stop at that in terms of the building, as far as the building goes for this particular view itself. And then from here, what I'm going to now do is I'm just going to go and save this itself. In fact, I'll just go and publish it straight away. So then we have this page up and running very quickly. At this point, I'm able to share just like through the usual ways for people to find the space, or I can just go ahead and kind of make it high, go to a different version if you like. So until it's not published, nobody will see that. So once I'm here, and I'm just going to hide that menu on the left because we don't need that for these purposes. But once it's published, then I'm able to at least go around, have a quick look, pretty much close to what we had in our editing mode, and all the information is there. So as far as the user comes into here, for the purposes of this Metaverse showroom, they have quick access without searching, without going somewhere else. You as a creator have put the necessary important artifacts for them to be able to engage and interact with all these elements here. So by that, if I go into here, for example, I can click on it. It doesn't take me anywhere. Inside the own space, I can still go and access that particular PowerPoint that I have here. So once I do that, then you can see that I can actually, go back, minimize, or I can save that for later, or even open that in a completely new tab. So then the actual PowerPoint file will open up. So usual editing experience you get, modify your file if you have editing rights within that. So I'm going to close that tab, and I'm going to just close that down there. If I go into kind of scrolling around, so again, being able to kind of navigate very quickly in that easily itself. Now you can see that the size of set is very small. They can hardly see the snapshot here. But the idea is you want people to kind of flick through those documents that you've chosen, what should be displayed there. I've displayed the entire document library. Could have created a folder with maybe 2 or 3 documents in them if I wanted to. Keys that you'll be focusing on that documents to the users. Here, I can click on this particular laptop here and being able to turn around because it's a 3D object itself. So again, getting the look and feel, all about that. Now, this particular laptop, there isn't a great deal, but at least you see where we're going with this particular 3D objects in terms of the power of that within your SharePoint space that you can get within that. So you can do various elements from that perspective. If I go over to my org chart, then I can click on, say, Alex, then I'll get Alex's details popping up with his phone number and everything else. Go back to Miriam, so I can get all the other direct reports for Miriam there as well. So, very kind of, nice and easy way to be able to go into each of these elements to kind of get the feel of that. Click on the video, then that's going to play the YouTube video for Surface Laptop. And okay, you probably won't hear that, but I can go and play that video from that. So kind of bringing all those experience elements of it straight away inside your SharePoint space. Okay. Questions, if there's anything, and if there's any question, please feel free to shout. No, there's nothing there. Any questions, anyone? No? Okay, that's fine. We can move on. Okay, so go back to slides on that one. Okay, so had a quick look at the SharePoint space design options in terms of what you can add. Web parts in there. So in terms of those specific web parts, and especially the specifics around it in terms of the file formats, even the size-wise, for the SharePoint ones, especially the 3D object, no more than 50 meg will go into that SharePoint space. Now, there's a reason for that, because all this obviously consumes the bandwidth and everything else in storage, or it will just not render on the SharePoint web page. So, but again, when you're designing some of these objects, then you need to keep that in mind in terms of the sizes wise. What I had, the example there was obviously more from the templates that's available, all that. But again, the folks who actually creates these files will know how to optimize and reduce the resolutions of that. Good practice around that typically is, if you have your kind of a organization assets, which is a special SharePoint site you can have, so you can have all that assets that you want to put in that you might want to reuse those objects in your SharePoint spaces, then it's easier probably to create and to get it from that organization assets lib SharePoint site that you have within that. So this will give you the instructions on how to do those. Had a quick look at the trigger and actions for different web parts you'll get, but the general principle remains the same in terms of what you can do with it, and then being able to show and access various bits and pieces. Scene orientation, constraint of object rotation. That's again, being able to lock it, or being able to remove that flexibility altogether. So you can kind of control some of those things within that. In terms of ideas for this, I mean, what you've seen is just probably a very small part of it in terms of what you can do, given the half an hour that we have, 40 minutes. But hopefully, I think some of the ideas, and especially when I the renewable energy company that I work with, some of these spaces that we've created is around the touring and the sites, where the wind turbines, for example, will be placed, and being able to being able to inspect, so being able to work across the countries easily in that manner. So, again, where depending on the organization you work for, you'll probably have different multiple use cases, but these are some of the common ones you will see in terms of being able to create virtual tours. And if you're buying our houses, then you're probably used to with that already. So same concept, you can book virtual tours for various things. So if you're a multinational, then of course, if you get new people, especially in this hybrid world, a lot of people leaving jobs, a lot of new jobs there as well, people going into, then this is probably a great way to actually get them onboarded to various elements around the company. So you can create multiple spaces for that. Training, project showroom. Again, if you have a project to celebrate, and again, you want to kind of take away the key project elements of it. You can almost build like a project room, so to speak, and showcase the projects within that if you wanted to, and then being able to obviously share company knowledge. By all means, it doesn't really replace anything that you already do, because this is all complementary and just enhancing that experience around the usage of SharePoint itself. And then, that space you have, you can, bring that into your Teams. And if you already use Teams channels, just like the way when you create a new tab, you can bring the SharePoint page inside it within that itself. So we can then go straight into their Teams channel from that point. Couple of things, the usual file types, the support that you have applies anyways in terms of, for your OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams, and that's the link over there. But obviously for 3D models and printing wise, those are the specific file types you want to kind of stick to, like GLB, for example. And like it says here, OneDrive.com can only show 3D files up to 250 megs. So anything bigger than that, then you probably, you won't see it. And again, reference to external resources, they're not supported in this particular ways. You can put 3D objects. So it does require a bit of investment from a graphic point of view. But once you have that ability and that resource, then you're able to kind of take advantage of SharePoint spaces very quickly. From my good friend Patrick this morning, his session around Microsoft Mesh for Teams, he put this slide up there. I think it probably sums up great things around where SharePoint space fits in the grand scheme of things. Again, when I've seen the story and some of the announcements from Ignite last year and the year before, it's a kind of a long journey. I think this is not something that you can just deliver a fixed piece of software and install it. But all these other technologies and platforms that are in play, it clearly shows, Microsoft Metaverse is kind of really kind of going for it. But as a user, I'll find I get overwhelmed, for example, and that's what my customers, for example, say, where do I start? Where do I go? And obviously Mesh for Teams here, it's almost like Teams is everything that we do. So again, you have to kind of make your point of call where you have SharePoint spaces versus other experiences that you might use. And for some of you, if you're going to join us later on for the after party for Metaverse, then that's obviously including this very session. Some of you may already be experiencing through Allspace VR. Then that's kind of the Microsoft platform there to be able to showcase all these experiences in there as well. Tons of resources, some community ones as well. So all the goodness of all the how to get started is all there, and do take a look at that. Some of those best practices, especially for 360-degree videos and being able to create all those things in very easily. Okay, so I think that kind of brings to the end of my session. I hope to see you soon. I'm speaking at all these events in the coming weeks and months. So it'll be good to catch up and connect with some of you. And so yeah, I think hope you kind of enjoyed the session today. And again, there's a lot to take in, so fully appreciate that, because it's a Metaverse day we have here. But hopefully you've taken something away from this SharePoint Spaces session. And please feel free to give us a feedback, because it is our first event after the makers of Teams Nation, and so your rating counts, good, bad, ugly, whichever it is. And I hope to you can tune into more sessions later around some of the security and compliance and employee experience on this particular track 3 as well. So with that, thanks for having me. And if there's any questions, then please do unmute or just simply drop the questions in the chat. But techchirag.com is the way to get to me again. Thank you very much. Thanks, Patty, for moderating the session.
Chirag.